The doors to the boardroom loomed ahead, polished oak gleaming ominously beneath the fluorescent lights. My heartbeat quickened as I pressed my palm against the cold metal handle, gathering my resolve before pushing the doors open. Inside, silence fell sharply as every gaze in the room turned toward me. My father, Richard Bennett, sat at the head of the table, eyes cold, unreadable. Liam, calm yet tense, watched me carefully from beside him, fingers subtly tapping nervously against the table edge. "Sit down," my father ordered curtly, his voice cutting through the stillness. I took my seat calmly, holding on to composure despite feeling my pulse hammering in my throat. Around the table, board members shifted uneasily, their eyes wary, uncertain. The tension was palpable. "Let's address this clearly," my father began, his voice firm but edged with accusation. "Serious allegations have surfaced against you, allegations of financial misconduct and fraud. Liam has provided evidence implicating you." I glanced sharply at Liam. He wore a mask of careful confidence, but his eyes flickered briefly with anxiety. He shifted nervously in his chair, revealing his unease. I took a slow breath, pulling the USB drive carefully from my pocket, gripping it firmly between my fingers. "I'm aware of Liam's accusations," I replied steadily, voice carrying through the silence. "But he's misled you. The evidence I hold proves that Liam himself orchestrated everything he's accused me of." Murmurs spread rapidly around the room, board members exchanging quick, astonished glances. Liam's eyes widened slightly, panic flickering briefly before he recovered himself, feigning indignation. "This is absurd," Liam protested immediately, rising halfway from his chair. "Father, she's manipulating you. She fabricated this so-called evidence to frame me." I cut him off sharply, standing to plug the USB into the conference projector. Documents flashed vividly onto the large screen, emails, financial transactions, and recorded conversations, unveiling Liam's carefully planned betrayal in stark, undeniable clarity. Gasps filled the room. My father's expression tightened visibly, eyes narrowing as he examined each piece of evidence. But instead of shifting his doubt toward Liam, he fixed a harsh gaze directly on me. "How do we know these aren't your own fabrications?" he challenged coldly, his voice icy. "You've always been resourceful, more than capable of creating convincing lies." His words stung more sharply than expected, pain cutting deeper than I'd imagined possible. The realization that he doubted me so thoroughly, even now, threatened to break the fragile strength I was holding on to. Yet I refused to waver. I met his gaze head-on, hiding the hurt behind fierce determination. "I've given everything to this company. To you. Why would I sabotage my own life's work?" I responded calmly, forcing my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The boardroom settled into tense silence once more, the stakes higher than ever. I knew this moment would decide not just my career, but my very identity, my honor and integrity. It was clear, from here on there would be no turning back. A heavy, oppressive silence filled the boardroom after my words faded. Board members shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between my father, Liam, and the evidence still displayed starkly on the screen. The tension was almost tangible, pressing down like a storm about to break. Liam spoke first, his voice strained yet deceptively controlled. "Father, you know me. I would never betray you or the company. She's desperate, clearly willing to manipulate anyone to save herself." My father didn't respond immediately, his gaze fixed intently on the screen, as though wrestling internally with the disturbing revelations. His hesitation offered me a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see Liam clearly for the first time. But when he finally spoke, his words dashed that fragile hope. "You expect me to believe that Liam, who's barely capable of managing his personal finances, pulled off something this sophisticated? This feels like another of your power plays." His cold skepticism cut deeper than a physical wound. My heart twisted painfully, disappointment washing over me like ice. Yet beneath the hurt, anger sparked fiercely, reigniting my resolve. "Look at the evidence," I implored sharply, stepping closer to the screen. "These documents aren't just allegations. They show exactly how Liam framed me. Every detail is traceable, verifiable." Liam interjected sharply, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yes, conveniently traceable back to me. How original. Tell me, sister, how long did it take you to manufacture all this?" His condescending tone sent a ripple of uncertainty through the room. Board members glanced doubtfully at each other, clearly unsettled by Liam's accusations. My father's expression darkened further, suspicion hardening visibly. "Enough!" my father snapped, standing abruptly, authority radiating from his posture. This infighting is destroying everything I've built. I refuse to let personal vendettas jeopardize my legacy. Both of you will leave the premises immediately. The board and I will deliberate privately. The shock of his decision sent a jolt through me. His refusal to even fully examine the truth felt like a final, crushing blow. Liam appeared equally stunned, but quickly masked it, sensing an opportunity. As you wish, father, Liam conceded smoothly, casting me a quick, triumphant smirk. I'm confident you'll make the right decision. Frustration boiled over within me. Father, please, don't let Liam manipulate you again, I pleaded urgently, my voice raw with sincerity. Check the facts yourself. Verify everything independently if you must, but don't let him blindside you any longer. His eyes met mine briefly, cold yet troubled, before he turned deliberately away. Leave now, he ordered curtly, his tone final. Defeated momentarily, but unwilling to concede, I turned sharply toward the door, anger and disappointment battling fiercely within me. Liam followed silently, his presence like a dark shadow hovering behind. In the corridor outside, Liam paused, leaning in close, his voice low and mocking. It's over, you lost. I met his gaze directly, refusing to show weakness. This isn't finished. You'll regret underestimating me. Liam merely smirked, confidence dangerously unshaken as he strode away. Alone now, I gathered my shattered composure, heart heavy but resolve unbroken. Liam had struck a powerful blow, but I wasn't defeated yet. This battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. I stood silently in the hallway, heart pounding fiercely as Liam disappeared around the corner, his arrogant stride echoing victory. My father's words still stung deeply, but defeat was something I refused to accept. Determined not to leave until the truth emerged, I lingered, pacing restlessly, searching desperately for another way to convince the board. Suddenly, hurried footsteps echoed from down the corridor. I looked up sharply, startled as Marcus, our family's long-standing attorney, approached swiftly, urgency etched deeply into his expression. Behind him, 2 uniformed police officers followed closely, their presence immediately imposing authority. Marcus met my gaze with grim determination. Where is Liam? Inside, with the board, I answered, confusion mingling with cautious hope. Marcus, what's happening? He paused briefly, his voice steady yet solemn. We uncovered concrete evidence of Liam's involvement in serious financial crimes, money laundering, tax evasion, and extensive fraud. The authorities have issued a warrant for his arrest. My breath caught sharply, disbelief and relief colliding in my chest. Without hesitation, Marcus pushed open the boardroom doors once again, officers stepping assertively into the stunned silence. My father turned sharply, his eyes widening in shock at the unexpected intrusion. Liam froze mid-sentence, confidence draining from his face instantly, replaced by panic. Marcus stepped forward firmly. Liam Bennett, you're under arrest for money laundering, fraud, and corporate sabotage. Officers, please proceed. Gasps of disbelief echoed through the boardroom. Liam's face went ghostly pale, mouth working silently, disbelief rendering him temporarily speechless. This is absurd, Liam finally choked out, desperation breaking his previously smooth facade. Father, stop this! It's a mistake! But my father stood frozen, his expression unreadable as the officers placed firm hands on Liam's shoulders, cuffing his wrists decisively. Marcus turned calmly toward the board, addressing them clearly. I've personally overseen the verification of these accusations. Liam systematically siphoned company funds into offshore accounts. His actions are indisputable, meticulously documented by federal investigators. Liam's voice cracked, panic rising sharply. You can't believe this. She's behind it. I'm being set up. My father stared at Liam, betrayal and shock evident in every line of his face. The realization finally struck him, heavy and merciless, crushing his defenses. He sank slowly into his chair, speechless, as Liam continued to protest wildly, struggling weakly against the firm grip of the officers. You destroyed yourself, Liam, I said quietly, stepping closer, my voice clear but tinged with sadness. I tried to stop you, but your greed blinded you. Liam's eyes flashed dangerously toward me, filled with fury and hatred, but ultimately, helplessness. Without another word, the officers escorted him swiftly from the boardroom, the door closing heavily behind them, signaling a painful yet undeniable end. Silence enveloped the room once more, heavier than ever. Board members sat frozen, eyes wide, processing the rapid, shocking events they'd just witnessed. My father's gaze drifted toward me slowly, a complex mix of guilt, regret, and reluctant acknowledgement. Marcus approached gently, standing beside me supportively. "The truth always surfaces," he murmured reassuringly. "I'm sorry it had to come to this." "So am I replied softly, feeling deeply the weight of victory intertwined with loss. Yet beneath the sadness and exhaustion, a profound strength emerged clearly within me. Liam's deceit had been exposed, justice had been served, but the battle for my own identity, my reputation, and the company's integrity was far from over. This moment was not an ending, it was merely the eye of the storm, and I knew with absolute certainty that more challenges still lay ahead. That evening, as darkness settled quietly over the city, I sat alone in my office, the soft glow of streetlights filtering through the glass. The noise and chaos of the day seemed distant now, replaced by a heavy, contemplative silence. I stared blankly at the cityscape below, the documents Marcus had given me spread across my desk. Undeniable proof of Liam's betrayal, now exposed for all the world to see. Despite the clarity of the evidence, my heart felt weighed down by a profound sadness. The price of victory was steep. Liam was behind bars, my father estranged, our family fractured perhaps beyond repair. I had fought so hard for justice, yet I couldn't escape the emptiness it left behind. A gentle knock broke the silence, startling me from my thoughts. Emma entered quietly, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. She offered one silently, her gaze filled with understanding. "You should be proud," she finally said softly, settling into the chair opposite me. "Not everyone has the courage to face the truth head-on." I took the cup gratefully, holding it tightly, the warmth a brief comfort against the chill of the night. "I did what was necessary," I murmured, "but it doesn't feel like victory." Emma nodded knowingly. "Justice rarely does. It's messy, complicated. But you stopped Liam before he could harm anyone else." Her words echoed softly, comforting but bittersweet. I thought of all the damage already done, trust shattered, relationships broken. I had always believed loyalty to family was absolute, yet today had shown me the brutal reality hidden beneath that illusion. Emma's voice softened, breaking through my thoughts again. "You know, my father often spoke of you before everything happened. He admired your determination, your integrity. He would have wanted me to help you." I met her eyes, touched deeply by her sincerity. "Thank you, Emma. Your courage gave me strength." She smiled faintly, sadness mixed with resolve. "Perhaps it's our scars that make us stronger, wiser. We've both survived betrayal, emerged clearer about who we truly are." I exhaled deeply, feeling some of the heaviness lift. Emma was right. The battle had cost me dearly, but I'd gained something invaluable, a clearer understanding of myself, my values, and my strength. I was no longer simply fighting for acceptance or approval from my father. I was standing firmly for truth and justice, guided by my own convictions. "What happens next?" Emma asked quietly, sensing the shift in my resolve. "We rebuild," I replied firmly, setting down the coffee. "We create something better, stronger, transparent, and unshakable. The company can rise from this, purified by truth." She nodded confidently. "And what about the backlash? Liam's bloggers, public perception?" I stood, approaching the large window, looking out over the vast expanse of the city, glittering defiantly against the night. "We keep fighting, with openness, honesty, and determination. If we stay true to who we are, the world will eventually see the truth." Emma rose beside me, her eyes reflecting admiration and solidarity. "You won't have to fight alone. I'm with you." Gratitude filled my chest, powerful and comforting. I had lost family bonds today, but found a true ally and friend in Emma. This moment was more than resolution. It was renewal, the first clear step forward on a path now entirely my own. And as I looked out over the city, I knew this wasn't merely an ending. It was the beginning of something stronger, more authentic, something truly mine. The aftermath struck swiftly and relentlessly. By morning, Liam's arrest had exploded across every major media outlet, shaking Bennett Enterprises to its core. My father withdrew completely from public sight, leaving me alone to face the storm of scrutiny. Headlines screamed scandal and controversy, placing my family's drama squarely in the public eye. As anticipated, Liam retaliated viciously, even from his cell. The blogger he'd hired, a prominent name known for sensationalized exposés, published scathing articles, painting me as a ruthless manipulator who framed her innocent brother for personal gain. Social media ignited with fiery accusations, hateful comments flooding every digital platform. My integrity, painstakingly built over years, was crumbling in mere hours, yet I refused to hide. Instead, I opened our doors wide to the media, inviting the press into Bennett Enterprises, allowing unprecedented access to company records. Transparency became my weapon, clarity my shield. Press conferences followed, relentless and exhausting, where I calmly faced probing questions, providing hard evidence for every claim I made, allowing journalists to see Liam's trail of deception firsthand. But just as the tide began turning, my phone rang urgently. Emma's panicked voice filled the line. "Your father collapsed at home," she gasped breathlessly. "He's been rushed to the hospital. It's serious." My heart stopped momentarily. Anger, resentment, hurt, everything evaporated instantly, replaced by a fierce surge of worry and dread. Without a second thought, I dropped everything, rushing through traffic toward the hospital, fear tightening painfully in my chest. When I arrived, the sterile brightness of the hospital corridor felt surreal. Doctors moved briskly, their hushed conversations echoing like distant murmurs. Emma stood waiting, eyes red, clearly shaken. Without a word, she led me toward my father's room, gently pressing my hand as she left me to face him alone. I entered slowly, breath caught in my throat. Richard Bennett lay pale and fragile beneath stark white sheets, eyes closed, machines around him blinking rhythmically. He seemed smaller, more vulnerable than I'd ever imagined possible. Hesitantly, I approached, noticing his eyelids flicker weakly before opening. His gaze slowly found mine, clouded with pain and something softer, remorse. "You were right," he murmured, voice weak but clear. "I should have believed you. I let myself be blinded." I stood frozen, the raw honesty in his voice disarming me completely. Emotions surged, anger battling compassion, resentment clashing with deep-rooted love. I took a shaky breath, forcing composure. "I never wanted things to end up this way," I whispered, voice trembling slightly. "Neither did I," he admitted painfully, looking away briefly. "But pride, tradition, my stubbornness blinded me to who you'd become. You deserved better. I'm so sorry." His apology, quiet yet profound, unlocked something within me, a deep well of grief I'd never allowed myself to feel. Tears filled my eyes, betraying my efforts to remain strong. I reached out, gently taking his frail hand. "We both lost sight of what mattered," I whispered softly. "But maybe we can rebuild from here." He nodded weakly, a faint, vulnerable smile crossing his lips. "Maybe, but that's your battle now. I won't stand in your way anymore." I squeezed his hand gently, feeling something shift profoundly within me. His acknowledgement, though painfully late, offered a bittersweet healing I desperately needed. As the quiet settled between us, I understood clearly this wasn't about revenge or victory anymore. It was about reconciliation, integrity, and strength. Liam's betrayal and my father's blindness had tested me, forged me anew. But now I was ready for the path ahead, defined by my own truth. Outside the hospital room, the storm still raged, the media battle far from over, but I no longer feared it. For the first time, I felt genuinely powerful, confident not because of others' approval, but because I'd finally accepted who I truly was. After leaving the hospital, I returned to the solitude of my office, the city lights shimmering through the glass as evening settled quietly around me. Everything felt changed, the weight of past resentments finally lifting. My father's heartfelt apology had been a profound turning point, offering a fragile but genuine chance at reconciliation. Yet despite this emotional clarity, the practical battle was far from finished. Emma knocked softly at my office door before entering, her familiar presence bringing a sense of comfort amid the lingering turmoil. "The latest news coverage is shifting," she reported, a tentative smile forming on her lips. "Your openness and honesty are paying off. The public is beginning to see the truth." I nodded, feeling relief, but knowing this victory was fragile. "Good, but we can't stop now. We must build something stronger, more transparent, so no one can ever undermine the company again." Emma's expression brightened, determination clear in her eyes. "How do we start?" "With honesty," I replied firmly, rising from my desk to stand beside her. "We'll restructure Bennett Enterprises completely. Remove those who profited from deceit, reward those who stayed loyal and truthful, and hire people who share our vision of integrity." She listened intently, hope and excitement visibly growing. "It's time for a fresh start," she affirmed confidently. In the following weeks, Bennett Enterprises transformed dramatically. The corrupt board members, those who'd once supported Liam, were swiftly removed. New, carefully chosen executives stepped in, committed to transparency and integrity. Each decision I made reinforced the message clearly. This company valued merit over connections, truth over convenience. My father watched quietly from afar, relinquishing control without resistance, a silent acknowledgement that the future belonged to me now. Gradually, the media storm calmed, the noise fading into a distant background as our new initiatives drew attention away from scandal and toward innovation and renewal. But the true moment of redemption came unexpectedly one quiet afternoon. Marcus stepped into my office unannounced, carrying an envelope. His serious expression immediately caught my attention. "What's this?" I asked curiously as he handed it over. "A personal letter, from Liam," he answered cautiously. "He insisted you read it directly." My heart tightened, uncertainty swirling within me as I opened it carefully. Liam's familiar handwriting filled the page, shaky yet sincere. I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. But sitting here, stripped of power and privilege, I've had nothing but time to confront my own mistakes. The bitterness I felt toward you was never truly about you. It was about my own inadequacies, my fears. You were always the stronger one, the deserving one. If nothing else, please believe that I genuinely regret everything. Don't waste another thought on me. Build the company as only you can. My hands trembled slightly as I set the letter down, absorbing its raw honesty. Liam's words carried a weight I hadn't anticipated, a painful sincerity that closed a lingering wound I hadn't realized was still open. Marcus watched me closely. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I whispered, feeling a surprising sense of release. "I finally am." In that moment, I knew I'd truly won, not by defeating my brother or forcing my father's surrender, but by freeing myself from the past. The crown I'd always pursued wasn't one passed down through family legacy or corporate triumph. It was forged from resilience, self-belief, and integrity. Looking out over the city that evening, I felt more powerful than ever, knowing my strength didn't depend on anyone else's approval or validation. This was my victory, my legacy, earned through trials, tears, and an unshakable commitment to truth. From this day forward, I wouldn't just lead Bennett Enterprises, I would redefine what leadership meant, not just for myself, but for every person ever underestimated, overlooked, or betrayed. The future was uncertain yet beautifully open, and I was finally ready to embrace it fully without fear or regret.